Okay. Now onto the wireframe. So the wireframe, it's kind of like that phrase, show don't tell. And that's a very good way to describe a wireframe, because what you're doing with the wireframe, you're just providing a very simple, but yet it's an explanatory visual concept. So we don't, as you can see right here, this is the wireframe right here. This is the wireframe that's created, that we will create. There are no images. There is no color. All it's doing is it's just a simple black and white block diagram. So it shows where images are going to be placed, where buttons are going to be placed, where the logo is going to be placed, where your navigation bar will be placed, and where text will be placed. That's it. And as I said, once it gets to this stage right here, it's a drag and drop. You just drag images in, and like I said, it is so simple. It's your template. So it helps us, the wireframing helps us solve design problems, because it answers questions like, how is this interface going to work? How is everything going to be organized? More importantly, how does the user interact with the website? Right? What specific elements do you need to allow them to navigate from page to page? We can't just rely on the navigation menu for them to move. So we have to, kind of think of the wireframes as our skeleton. They really they shape our final design, but it really gives, what it does, it gives you a very reliable idea of where everything is going to go, as well as the client, which in this case is me. So it's the very basic black and white layout of each page for each device. So no color, no imagery. We're not using the text. So we're not going to be using any text from here. That happens later on. If you use text, you're going to be going back and double backing and fixing it. So I don't want you to do that. So what it does, again, it allows you to focus solely on kind of like the big picture, right? The design decisions before you dive into adding all the details, the color, the imagery, and all that. It also gives you an opportunity to solve the design problem. It's part of, it will help you with week 2 assessment. You could also sketch. That could be a great tool that you could do to or use to help solve this problem, correct? So, it all begins with, it's really easy. Everything begins with an idea. You all have kind of like I want certain elements on my page to do X, Y, and Z. However, you need to know from the design standpoint what the user is going to see on each page in order to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Does that make sense? So sketching could be, again, sketching would play a very valuable role in that. So what we're going to do is go into XD. So we have our, let me just backtrack. Remember, the pages must match the sitemap. Our pages must match the sitemap. Okay, so let's go into XD. We set this up yesterday. Do you think a grid would be important to use? Would that be something that you might want to think about using? Almost definitely. Do you know XD has a wonderful grid that you can use? It's fantastic. So all I do is select an artboard, and then over here on my properties panel, where it says grid, it says layout. If I just select that, we don't want this layout, but if you hit this little drop down, you get squares. This is a default 8. I don't want 8. That's really too small for me. I prefer something a little bit larger, maybe like 30. the key is that they are equal. That means you don't want, you know, a full square over here and a half one over here, because things aren't going to align precisely. So this one works good. One thing that happened is you saw that I changed them. They all went to this 8. If I want to keep them all the same, so if I highlight my web, they should really be all the same. There we go. So the grid's going to help me. Okay, so any questions so far? We've defined our grid. What would be some things that you would have on here? We need to have our navigation menu, correct? Our navigation bar. Is that going to be across the top? Is it going to be along the side? That's something you have to decide, but it has to be consistent from page to page, right? Would you agree? Has to be consistent. Okay, so let's look at a couple things here that we can use that will help us with this project. If I come right up here to File and go to Get UI Kits, so File and Get UI Kits, and if I go down here to Wireframes, it's going to take me to a website, and then I can download the kits right here. And I don't want to download that. So you download, it's going to give you the download those kits. Okay, so all right, okay, I know why. I jumped or went down. So you want to download the kits. It's at the very top of the page. Download the kits. It's going to ask you where you want to download them. I've already downloaded them. This is zip frame or a zip file, and then I unzipped it, and there's my wires. So if I come back into XD, I can open these up. So here they are. They're the wires mobile and the web XD. Now, I want you to keep in mind here that these are used, there's so many of them here, they're not going to be the solution. 99.9% of them are not going to be the solution for your project. You can't just use these because they're not applicable to your project. However, there are some elements from here that you could use. So let's go to the landing sections. Say I want a navigation menu. It's already got my type in there. I can copy this. I can highlight it and copy it, and then we can just move back into my other project. I can select my artboard and I can paste it there. Now, we have some element issues here. Notice right up here in the top left-hand corner, it's what's called, it's a symbol. We don't want that. You need to right-click it and unlink it. Now I can just, you also have an alignment tool with this program right up here to the top. I can align it, and I can align it to the left. And then we need to stretch this out, correct? I can just drag it and stretch it. There's a couple things. I need to ungroup this. I might use my grid to resize that, and I'm going to change this to black. This must be all black. Also, you want to, if you're going to use these, you have to look at these very closely. XD is not applicable, so you need to delete that. I also have over here this little right there, those dots. We need to get rid of those. You need to change these. So we need to have a home page. So I need to change all these. So I can use my type tool that we talked about yesterday. And we can, whoops, not undo that. Let's see, we can just highlight this. Whoops, come on. Let's grab our type tool. And we can label that home. We have about us. I can even put in our team. I should spell correctly. I can also put in our services and contact. But now what is wrong with this right here? What do you see that's wrong with all this up here? It's not connected, is it? It's just kind of spread out. Here's a cool thing you can do. Watch. If I just select this frame here and I can move it, if I hold my shift key down, it's going to constrain it. Can you see the little magenta numbers on the top? There's like a 24, there's a 3. That tells you how far the spacing is. So let's just start moving these in here. And watch, they're going to start getting, if I move these in, if I hold my shift key down, it constrains it. But I can start moving these a little bit closer. There's 8. Let's try and get all these together, or the same spacing. And I think we've got another element in here. See how those, see, as I move those closer, do you see that? Do you see the magenta in there? It says it's the same spacing. So you kind of want to get this pretty much, you know, we can adjust this later when we finalize this, but you really want to get this all together, get it closer together. You can change the size of this. It doesn't have to stay the same. If I want these a little bit larger, you can see I'm at 10 pixels. Do I want them larger? I can highlight them all. And maybe I'll change those to 14. But then again, I'm going to have to, if I do that, I'm going to have to, you know, move these around. Okay, so now let's talk about this. We need this on the other pages, correct? Well, let's make this really easy. Let's copy this. And now I'm just going to zoom to fit all. If I highlight the artboard, I just gonna paste it. Look at that, it pasted in place. Highlight, Command or Control V. Highlight, Command or Control V. There we go. The next thing we need to think about is a logo, correct? All pages have to have a logo. So we can represent the logo with a circle, an oval. You can kind of look at your logo and see if it's a round or square shape. And I can align this. Here's my alignment panel. We can fill this with black. I shouldn't have a border on there. I can label this. I can just take out my text frame. So this gives you a very good opportunity to work with your text frame. I can type in the word logo. I can center it. So you get to work with the text that we talked about yesterday, formatting your text. Okay, perfect. And we can group this information together. So I can group it by object and group, or Command or Control G. If I copy this, we will do the same as what we just did. Highlight, highlight, paste, highlight, paste. Look at that. Repetition, because I don't want my logo in different various positions on each page. Would you agree? Okay. And then what do we need next? This is where you have to look at your photographs. So look at what you have. Let's go into I'm going to take my first choice. These photographs that are given to you are all labeled. I can see that there is a home page. There is a picture that goes on the home page. I'm not using this picture, but I still need to add this picture on here. Now, what could I do with this? I could say, you know what, maybe I will make this picture about this large. I want to have the same spacing on the left and the right, correct? I want to think about principles of design. We don't need a border on here, but we will change it and add black. Now, this is where you start thinking about the user experience. If they're coming to this website, what is my goal? I want to learn about their services. So something very important to keep in mind, that the web page, as a designer, you have to define a goal for the web page, and the web page has to meet the goal of the user. They have to connect. That's what gives us that engaging user experience, which is what we're going to be focusing on. So part of, if you look into week 2 in the assessment, you're talking about your design strategy. Okay, so maybe my design strategy for First Choice Animal Clinic is to promote their services. Okay, so maybe I'll drag out a text frame. I'll type in the word "our services." And why didn't "our services" show up? Because it is white. It picked up the last attribute that I was using. And I can make this a little bit larger. Maybe we'll make this like 28 pixels. I might even go a little bit larger. Okay, there's our services. Now, I can just move this into position. Now, just keep in mind that it doesn't have to be like dead on, because you're going to make those changes in week 2, but you don't want it all over the place. You still have to have some organization. You want to think about the hierarchy this week as well. Our services. Okay, so what are our services? Well, if I go look here, our services, there are 4 services: general surgery, digital, preventive, and wellness. Okay. And I'm going to go back into here. Let's kind of zoom out. Maybe our services would be, I could put them in a square. I might even think about a circle, just for example, something very small, maybe like this. I might move this up here a little bit, but I might even move this in here a little bit, and I'll fill that with a solid color. I don't want a border on it. So we can remove that, because the border is not going to be seen. That means you're not strengthening contrast, you're weakening contrast. And then what are my services? Well, let's add a text frame. And the services are digital radiology, or maybe you just indicate service 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you'll relabel that later on. So it's your call. I don't want this as large as this, because this is the largest. This is a title that introduces this, meaning if we're thinking hierarchy, this should be smaller. Would you agree? And maybe I'll align this to the left. Okay, so now what do we need to do? Let's get some placeholder text. Where do we get placeholder text? Let's go back to those wires on the web. And any of these will work. So let's just take this one right here. So you can see here's some placeholder text. If I just double click on that, I can copy it, move back over into here, into my assignment, and I'll just paste that. So now let's fix this. We don't need all this placeholder text. If you kind of look at, if you go back and look right here, it's really only about a sentence, correct? Well, that's the beauty of the placeholder text. Let's just delete that, change that to black. And we'll just move this up here a little bit. We can even change it more. There we go. And now let's use that wonderful repeat grid. Let's just move this over here a little bit. If I highlight these 3 elements, I group them, and then come up here to repeat grid. Let's put this into play. There we go. We just have to move this a little bit over here. Maybe we'll move this one over here. There we go. So if you want to put each service, that's fine. You can do it this week or you can do it later on. You will have to put them in there. So you're definitely going to have to put them in there. This week, all you're doing is indicating where they're going to be. But if you want to put them in there, that's your call. But if not, like I said, they will be, you're eventually going to have to put them in there. So if you just want to label it like, service 1, service 2, service 3, there can't be more services than what they offer, of course. And service 4, you can. Okay, so now what would, once the user comes to my website, what are they going to see? They see my services that I'm promoting, correct? Well, what do I want them to do? Let's move this up here a little bit. Well, I want them to learn more about these services. Would you agree? I want them to learn more about the services. So what do I do? How do I allow them to do that? Well, I need to put a button here, learn more, correct? So let's create a small button. Let's take our ellipse, or not our ellipse, but our rectangle, and we just create a button here. Doesn't have to be really large, and then we can, we wouldn't have a stroke on this. We would fill it. And then if we want to add a rounded corner, we can do the rounded corner on this if you want. And then what am I going to do? Well, let's add some text into here. You've got to give me an indication. It can't just be a blank box. What is this? What would it say? It would be learn more. That would be the logical. It would be learn more. It wouldn't, right? So you have to think about, what do you want them to do? It has to be self-explanatory. It has to be very intuitive. And then we're going to change that color to white. I can move that up into here. There we go. Now, if you look at this page, right, I definitely have to align that, but again, so they come to the page. Here's my home page picture. I'm educating them about or introducing them to the services. Now I say, okay, I want you to learn more about these services. They click on it, and that takes them to the next page. So to recap, let me just show you a finalized and kind of go through this thinking here. So here are the services. Then here are my 4 services. They are larger images, because if you look here, there are 4 images that go for the services. They're all labeled. You have to think about, what is the focal point of this page? Well, it's the services. I want these services, but more importantly, I want them to be able to learn more about this specific service, about preventive care, about wellness plans. That's why I added a learn more button there. We have the About Us page. Here's our team. And then what if they have questions after they've read about the little bit of information about us? Do I provide a means for them to contact us? So yes, this is the assignment. Our team. Here, as I said, you could combine them both, but what's under our team? Well, there's 3 vets. But I want to allow the user to learn more about the vet, to see why they're qualified to work for First Choice Animal Clinic. Would you agree? I want them to be as informed as possible before they make a decision to use us as a veterinarian, our services for their pet. So about contact us, that takes them to the contact us page. You need to create what closely resembles a contact form. It says we need to create a form, right? So we're creating a form. Well, it's very simple to do. I would, again, stay away from the UI kits, because you're going to get a form that is not even relevant to this. If you want the social media icons, there are only 2 that are allowed. Again, you get those in the web or mobile, either one. And if you come right over here to UI elements, you will see them right here. I can copy that. I can move back over into here, and we can move over here to our artboard, highlight the artboard and paste it in there. And then I can make that a little bit larger, change that to black. Again, everything has to be black and white. Okay, so this one, I have a shape right here that is a map. Why did I choose a Google map? A Google map would be, this is a locally, a local company, right? So the demographic is very small. I'm not having people travel from state to state. So I could have a Google map right here that I would add in week 3. The form has to have a way to submit, right? It means for them to submit if they're trying to contact you. You could have a Google map for any of these. You could have a Google map that would show, where the Red Canyon Golf Village is located. You could have a Google map that would show where each one of those 3 specific tours are located at. But this week, if you're going to use a Google map, just indicate that it's going to be a Google map. Notice what else I'm doing. I'm using my grid structure. This is a 4-column grid structure. So this is 2, this is 2, that's 2 columns. That's repetition. If we look at my tablet, you have to have a image there. It is a homepage image that is, again, it is found in the assets. I want this to be a newsletter. So I'm going to have a newsletter, but I want them to learn more about the newsletter. And then once they go to the newsletter, then I can say, okay, here's some articles that they would be reading about. That's all I'm doing. Placeholder text, I showed where to get that. The phone, we have a login page. This indicates the menu up there, right? That we will finalize in week 3, but there's a logo. There's a login. So you're setting up the format of the pages. But you have to make sure you look at, this is not incredible, this is critical, that you look at these. If you chose quality travel, you have to look at these and see about us. That's the only, you have an about us image. There's a home page image. So the home page image is going to go on the mobile phone. It's going to go on the tablet, as well as it's going to go on the website, correct? You can see there are only 3 vacation packages there. Red Canyon has a little bit more. But they all have a home page. So there are images that are required. There's not an image that goes on the login page, but you need to provide a means for them to log in. What if they don't have an account? Should they sign up? So just keep this in mind. Don't overanalyze this. You just like Andrea said, we're setting up the format of our pages because at the end of week 2, we really want this to be a drag and drop. That's all it's going to be, is a drag and drop template. So what you want to do is, plan the user experience. You're going to get video feedback. I will be giving you feedback on changes that are necessary to create this engaging user experience. Maybe just everything's great to go. So it's, again, it's, put some thought into it, but kind of think about how am I going to direct them from page to page? Once they come to the Our Services page, why do I have a learn more here? Well, because I want them to learn more about this surgery, because it doesn't tell them anything about it here. I'm not creating this page, but it's an indication that, hey, if they click on this, it takes them to another page. Does that make sense? So you have to look at the user experience. Also, if you look at week 2, in week 2, we are creating icons. So week 2, here would be one icon right there, my newsletter. I'm starting to plan ahead. I could create a map, a pin location for my map. There's the second icon. I could you know, I'm looking at maybe adoption. So maybe I create some kind of a dog or cat, maybe a cat and a dog only. I'm starting to plan out my icons that I'll be doing next week. And we'll be going over, we're going to create those icons next week too. All right, Ayana, so it makes sense a little bit. I know you came in on the tail end, so maybe if you go back and watch the recording, it would probably make a little bit more sense to you. And also, did you ever find the recordings? You asked me about those. Did you find those? All right, to find the recordings, let's go into the home page, the live session. Right there. There are the recordings right there. That's the first one. That's the second one. The other ones are going to be right here after today once I send out the email to everyone. You can also find them in the course announcements. Right? Live session recorded. There they are. So does that answer your question on where to find them now? On the map. Well, no, what I was showing you, Andrea, was my grid structure. I have a 4-column grid structure you can see right here. So I don't want, these really shouldn't, if we're thinking principles of design, which we should be, this shouldn't be completely different size than this one. Would you agree? They should all be, so that was the advantage of why I set my grid structure up. This is 2 columns. It's a larger image, but it still spans 2 columns. This spans 2 columns. So that, again, that's why I set that grid structure up. So I could do that. All right. The second live one, right, is what was recorded right now. Yeah. So this is today's. Yesterday had 2 recordings, and today we'll have 2 recordings as well. So there will be a total of 4 recordings for this week. All right. Any questions? Okay, fantastic. I appreciate your time. You all have a great day.